My sister wouldn't stop mocking me for being cheated on. Then her dream wedding blew up in her face. You know what your problem is? My sister Chloe said while trying on her wedding dress. I think you're just not very smart. You didn't even see the signs. I was helping her with the buttons, even though she'd spent months making cruel jokes about my breakup. My ex had been sleeping with his coworker for half a year before I found out, and Chloe thought it was the funniest thing ever. Maybe if you'd been better in bed, he wouldn't have needed to find someone else, she continued while admiring herself in the mirror. I bit my tongue because I was her maid of honor, and Mom would kill me if I ruined her wedding week. Chloe loved telling everyone at her engagement parties about how clueless I was about my cheating boyfriend. She actually thought they were just working late together, she'd announced to her friends while I stood there holding her purse. Can you imagine being that naive at 25? She'd bring it up at family dinners and work events. And even told the story to her fiancé Parker's parents the first time she met them. The difference between us is that I know how to keep a man. Interested, she said while we were picking up her wedding cake. Parker worships the ground I walk on. Some people are just naturally better at love. She'd say loud enough for me to hear while loading gift boxes. Others get cheated on and then stay single for 2 years because they're too damaged to try again. The best part of getting married is I never have to worry about getting humiliated, Chloe told a crowd during her rehearsal dinner. Because my sister taught me exactly what a relationship looks like when it implodes. The whole wedding party laughed while I forced a smile and tried not to cry. Then the wedding day arrived, and Chloe looked stunning in her designer dress that cost more than my car. She kept talking about how perfect everything was going to be, and how this was the happiest day of her life. Not everyone is perfect. Not everyone gets a fairy tale wedding, she said while the makeup artist finished her lipstick. Some people are destined for cheating boyfriends and loneliness. I was just counting down the minutes until the day was over and I could block her number. The ceremony started perfectly with Chloe walking down the aisle like a princess, while everyone oohed and awed over how beautiful she looked. Parker was waiting at the altar, looking handsome in his tuxedo. Then the time came for him to read his vows. Chloe went first, talking about love, admiration, and never giving up. Parker went next, but instead of taking out a folded piece of paper like Chloe, he took out his phone. Did he really write his vows while playing 8-ball pool? I thought. But I was wrong. Before we continue, Parker started, I think everyone should know what kind of person I'm marrying. Last week I overheard Chloe talking to her friends, and I thought it was worth recording. Chloe froze as Parker Bluetooth connected his phone to the church sound system. I think our guests deserve to know the real Chloe. She tried to protest, but the recording had already started playing, and Chloe's voice filled the room, clear as day. Being honest, Parker is a boring loser. But his family has money. So I'm just going to marry him. Then change everything about him after I'm rich, her voice said through the speakers. He's pathetic in bed too. He has no personality, and I have to pretend I love him more than that hot guy at work. But at least he'll never have to work again. 200 wedding guests sat in stunned silence as the recording continued. I could never actually love someone that ugly. Chloe was screaming for Parker to turn it off, but he let the whole thing play. By the time it was done, Chloe's $300 makeup was smeared from crying, and her wedding dress was stained with running mascara. Parker took off his microphone and walked out of the church, leaving Chloe alone at the altar in front of everyone she'd ever known. The same friends had laughed at my cheating story were now staring at her in horror and disgust. Chloe spent the reception crying while guests left early and avoided eye contact. She kept insisting it was all taken out of context. This isn't fair, because at least you actually loved your boyfriend. She sobbed while I helped her out of her veil. Everyone thinks I'm worse than you now because you were innocent and I was using him. The scandal followed her everywhere, just like she'd made sure mine followed me. Her coworkers knew about the wedding disaster and would whisper whenever she walked by. Her friends completely cut her off. She had to move back in with our parents because Parker kicked her out. That's when Chloe showed up at my apartment looking completely unhinged, with dark circles under her eyes and her hair unwashed. This is all your fault, she said, pushing past me into my living room. Everyone keeps saying how sorry they feel for you and how evil I am because you were the innocent victim and I'm the gold digger. Her logic was twisted, but her desperation was real. People are taking your side when I should be the one getting sympathy. She pulled a knife out of her purse and pointed it at me with shaking hands. The only way to fix this is if people remember you as the sister who got murdered instead of the sister who got cheated on. I couldn't move. Chloe was standing 5 feet away from me holding a kitchen knife. And her hand was shaking so badly I was more scared she'll stab me by accident than on purpose. My phone was in my back pocket, and I needed to figure out how to call for help without making her lunge at me. She was still talking about how this was all my fault and how everyone thought she was evil now because of me. I forced myself to take a slow breath and keep my voice calm. I told her that killing me wouldn't fix her reputation. It would just prove everyone right about her being unstable. Chloe started crying harder and yelling that I ruined her life by being the good victim while she was the villain. Her logic made zero sense, but I was not about to argue with someone holding a weapon. She kept saying over and over that people needed to remember me as the murdered sister instead of the cheated-on sister. I slowly reached for the throw pillow on my couch and set it on my lap like I was just trying to get comfortable. Then I carefully slid my phone out from under me and hid it under the pillow. I dialed 911 without looking at the screen and prayed I hit the right numbers. I left the line open and spoke loudly so the operator could hear everything. I said Chloe's name and told her she needed to put the knife down before someone got triggered or hurt. Chloe started pacing back and forth across my living room, ranting about how Parker made her look like a gold digger in front of everyone. She said her friends wouldn't talk to her. Her coworkers whispered about her, and she lost everything because of that stupid recording. I kept my voice steady and told her that hurting me wouldn't bring back her wedding or her friends. I was desperately hoping the 911 operator was sending help right now, because I didn't know how much longer I could keep Chloe talking. She was getting more worked up instead of calming down, and the knife was still pointed at me. My whole body wanted to run, but I knew that would make her chase me. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking on my door. And I heard my neighbor Adriana's voice calling out, asking if everything was okay in there. She said she heard yelling through the wall. Chloe spun toward the door, and for a second, the knife wasn't aimed at me anymore. I saw my chance and started moving slowly toward the kitchen where there was a back exit. The knocking felt louder and more insistent. Adriana said she was calling the building manager if I didn't answer right now. Chloe looked panicked instead of angry, and I could see her face change as she realized how bad the situation actually was. She was looking between me and the door like she couldn't decide what to do. Then I heard sirens outside getting closer and closer. Chloe's face went completely white. She dropped the knife on the floor with a clatter and ran toward my door. She yanked it open so hard it slammed against the wall, nearly knocking over Adriana as she bolted down the hallway. I collapsed onto my couch and couldn't stop shaking. My whole body was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. Adriana rushed into my apartment, asking if I was hurt and if Chloe did anything to me. She saw the knife lying on the floor where Chloe dropped it, and her eyes went wide. She immediately understood what just happened and wrapped her arms around me. The sirens were getting louder, and I could hear them pulling up right outside my building. Officer Nolan Contreras arrived at my door within 2 minutes, with another officer right behind him. They found me sitting on my couch with Adriana next to me and the knife still lying on the floor. I tried to explain what happened, but I could barely get the words out because my whole body was still shaking. Officer Contreras was calm and told me to take my time. He carefully photographed the knife from different angles and took pictures of my apartment. His partner sat down across from me and starts taking my statement. I told them everything about the wedding disaster and how Chloe showed up at my apartment, blaming me for ruining her life. I explained how she pulled the knife out of her purse and pointed it at me. I told them about the threat she made about people remembering me as the murdered sister instead of the cheated-on one. Officer Contreras wrote down every detail and asked me specific questions about exactly what Chloe said and did. Officer Contreras pulled out an evidence bag and carefully picked up the knife, with gloved hands, sealing it inside while his partner photographed the exact spot where it landed. He turned to me and explained that what Chloe did counts as assault with a deadly weapon, even though she didn't actually stab me. And that threatening someone with a knife is a serious crime that carries real consequences. I was still shaking as I gave him my parents' address, since that was the only place Chloe had been staying since Parker kicked her out after the wedding disaster. The officer wrote everything down in his notebook and told me they'd go there next to try to locate her and get her statement about what happened. Adriana was sitting next to me on the couch, and Officer Contreras asked if she'd be willing to give a witness statement about what she heard and saw. She immediately said yes and explained that she heard yelling through our shared wall, then heard me say something about putting the knife down, which was when she started knocking on my door. She told him that when Chloe ran out of my apartment, she looked completely crazy with wild eyes and messy hair, and that she nearly knocked Adriana over in her rush to get away. Officer Contreras wrote down every detail and told me that having a witness who can back up my story is really important for building a strong case. He asked if I wanted to pursue criminal charges against Chloe and if I wanted to file for a restraining order to keep her away from me. I was so tired I could barely think straight. But I knew the answer was yes to both because I genuinely believed Chloe might come back and try to hurt me again. My whole body felt heavy, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking as I told him I wanted to do whatever it takes to stay safe. Officer Contreras explained the process for filing a police report and how to apply for an emergency protective order through the courthouse. He gave me his business card with his direct number written on the back. He told me to call him immediately if Chloe tried to contact me. In any way, whether it was showing up here, calling, texting, or anything else. His partner handed me a victim services pamphlet with information about counseling and legal help, and they both told me I did the right thing by calling for help. After they left with the bagged knife, I immediately locked my door. I pushed my couch against the door, even though I knew that wasn't actually going to stop anyone who really wanted to get in. Adriana watched me struggle with the couch and felt compelled to offer to stay the night so I wasn't alone. I almost started crying because I was so grateful for her kindness. I told her yes please. Because there was absolutely no way I could sleep alone in this apartment tonight knowing Chloe might come back. We moved the couch back to its normal spot so Adriana had somewhere to sleep, and I gave her a pillow and blanket from my closet. She asked if I wanted to talk about what happened. But I shook my head because I didn't have the energy to go through it all again right now. I went to my bedroom and lay down fully dressed on top of my covers because I was too exhausted to change into pajamas. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Chloe's face twisted in anger and the knife pointed at my chest. I checked my phone and it was already past midnight, but I was too wired to sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to every sound in the building, my heart jumping every time I heard footsteps in the hallway or a door closing somewhere. Around 2 a.m. I finally drifted off, but I woke up again at 3 a.m. from a nightmare where Chloe came back and actually stabbed me. I was sweating and my heart was racing so fast I thought I might throw up. I got up and checked that my bedroom door was locked. And then I checked the front door deadbolt, even though I knew Adriana was right there on the couch. I went back to bed but couldn't fall asleep again until almost 4 a.m. And even then, I kept having those half-awake moments where I jolted up thinking I heard something. When my alarm went off at 6 a.m., I felt like I hadn't slept at all. My eyes were burning and my whole body ached. I dragged myself out of bed and found Adriana already awake, making coffee in my kitchen. She asked how I slept and I told her the truth, which was barely at all. She gave me a hug and told me that was completely normal after what I went through. At 8 a.m., my phone started ringing and I saw it was my mom, Nina, calling. I answered it, and she immediately starts screaming at me for calling the cops on my own sister. She said Chloe came home last night crying and told them that I attacked her first and she was just defending herself, which was such an obvious lie I couldn't even find words to respond. My mom was yelling about how I was tearing this family apart and how could I do this to Chloe when she was already going through so much after the wedding disaster. I tried to explain that Chloe literally pulled a knife on me and threatened to murder me, but my mom talked right over me, saying I was exaggerating and making things worse than they were. Then my dad, Vaughn, got on the phone. He used his calm, reasonable voice, which somehow made me even more angry. He said that Chloe was just upset and didn't mean anything by it. And that I should understand she's been under a lot of stress lately. I told him she threatened to murder me. And he actually said that she was obviously exaggerating because that's just how Chloe gets when she's dramatic. He told me I was overreacting by getting the police involved in that we should handle this as a family instead of making it a legal issue. I hung up on both of them because I couldn't listen to another second of them making excuses for Chloe's behavior. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I saw it was from Parker, Chloe's ex who exposed her at the wedding. He was asking if I was okay because Chloe posted something weird on social media last night about betrayal from all sides. He said he was not trying to be my friend or get involved in family drama. He just wanted to make sure I was safe since he knew how unstable Chloe had been acting. I actually appreciated that he bothered to check on me, even though he had no reason to care about what happens to me. Another text came in. And this time it was from my coworker, Bowie, asking if I was coming into work today. I realized I needed to tell my job what was happening because I couldn't just pretend everything was normal. I called Bowie instead of texting back. I told him the basic version about my sister threatening me with a knife and the police getting involved. He was quiet for a second. And then he told me his sister went through something similar with a violent ex, and he immediately offered to help me find a therapist because he knew how important that was for his sister's recovery. I told him yes please. Because I was barely holding myself together right now and I needed professional help to process everything that was happening. Bowie texted me back within 5 minutes with a recommendation for a therapist named Jasmine Ward, who apparently specializes in family trauma and had same-day availability for crisis appointments. I looked her up online and called her office right away. And the receptionist got me scheduled for an appointment that same afternoon at 2 p.m. I booked the session because I knew I couldn't handle this on my own anymore. And I needed someone who actually knew what they were doing to help me figure out how to stay safe and deal with my family's complete betrayal of my trust and safety. I forced myself to go to work the next morning, even though I barely slept and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Bowie took one look at me when I walked in and immediately asked if I was okay, and I told him I was managing, but it was obvious I wasn't. My manager, Sarah, pulled me into her office around 10 a.m. after watching me stare at my computer screen without typing anything for 20 minutes. She closed the door and asked me directly if I was safe. And something about the way she said it makes me start crying right there in her office. I told her the basic version about my sister showing up at my apartment with a knife and threatening to kill me, and Sarah's face went completely white. She told me to take whatever time I need and that my job would be here when I was ready to come back. Then she asked if I want building security to know about the situation in case Chloe tries to show up at the office. I said yes immediately because at this point, I didn't trust Chloe to stay away from anywhere I might be. And the idea of her walking into my workplace makes me feel sick. Sarah walked me down to the security desk herself and explained the situation to the head of security, who took down Chloe's name and description and promised to call the police if she shows up. My therapy appointment with Jasmine was at 2 p.m. And I spent the time between then and now sitting in the break room trying to calm down. I drove to Jasmine's office in a part of town I've never been to before and sat in the waiting room filling out intake forms about my mental health history. When Jasmine called me back, she was younger than I expected. Maybe in her early 30s, and she had this calm energy that made me feel like I can actually talk to her. I spent most of the session crying while I explained the years of Chloe mocking me about being cheated on, the wedding disaster with Parker exposing her, and then the knife incident 2 days ago. Jasmine listened without interrupting and took notes, and when I was done, she told me this wasn't just about one bad moment. She said it was about a pattern of Chloe treating me terribly and my family enabling her behavior instead of holding her accountable. Jasmine asked me about my childhood and what my relationship with Chloe was like growing up. I started talking and realized that Chloe had always been the golden child who could do whatever she wanted without consequences. Every time she was mean to me, our parents would tell me to be the bigger person and not make waves. I was supposed to ignore it when she broke my things, told lies about me, or made fun of me in front of her friends. Jasmine wrote something down and told me that basically taught Chloe she could treat me however she wanted because I would always take it and our parents would never punish her. 3 days later, Officer Contreras called me and said they went to my parents' house to talk to Chloe, but she refused to come out of her room. My parents told the police I was exaggerating and that it was just a sister fight that got out of hand. I felt like I was going to throw up because they saw the police report, they knew what happened, and they were still protecting Chloe. Officer Contreras sounded tired when he explained that without Chloe actually stabbing me or making additional threats, it's hard to arrest her right away. But the report was filed, and he strongly suggested I apply for a restraining order. He gave me the number for legal aid and told me to mention his name when I call so they'll take it more seriously. My parents wouldn't stop calling and texting, trying to get me to drop this whole thing and stop trying to ruin Chloe's life even more. My mom sent me a long text about how Chloe was struggling and needed support from her family, not police involvement. My dad called and left a voicemail saying I was being vindictive and that real sisters forgive each other. I finally texted them back that Chloe ruined her own life by being a terrible person and threatening to murder me, and then I blocked both their numbers. Chloe posted a long Facebook rant that night about how I called the police over nothing and always had to make everything about me. She wrote that I was jealous of her and trying to destroy her reputation because I couldn't handle that she was getting married while I'm still single. Several of her remaining friends commented supporting her and saying they can't believe I would do this to my own sister. Reading the comments made me feel crazy until I remembered that these people had no idea she pulled a knife on me. I took screenshots of everything Chloe posted just in case I needed it later for legal reasons. Jasmine told me during our second session that documenting everything was smart because it shows Chloe's mindset and her complete lack of remorse for what she did. Parker messaged me again, offering to send me the full recording he played at the wedding if it helps with legal stuff. I took him up on it. And he emailed me the audio file within an hour, along with a message saying he hopes I stay safe. A week after the knife incident, I was walking to my car after work and I saw Chloe sitting in a vehicle across the street, just watching me. My whole body went cold and my heart started racing so fast I thought I might pass out. I immediately turned around and went back inside the building, heading straight for the lobby where the security desk was. I called Officer Contreras from there with shaking hands and told him Chloe was outside watching me right now. Officer Contreras showed up 15 minutes later with another officer, and I was still sitting in the lobby shaking. He asked me to describe exactly what I saw. And I told him about Chloe's car parked across the street and how she was just sitting there watching me. The building security guard pulled up the footage from the parking lot cameras, and we all watched it together on his monitor. The timestamp showed Chloe's car arriving over an hour before I got off work, and she just sat there the entire time staring at the building entrance. Officer Contreras rewinded it twice to make sure we had clear shots of her license plate and her face visible through the windshield. He told me this was textbook stalking behavior, and I needed to stop putting off the restraining order because Chloe was escalating. He wrote up another report documenting the stalking incident and gave me a copy, along with the security footage saved on a thumb drive. Before he left, he made me promise to call legal aid first thing in the morning, and he wrote down the direct number for the intake coordinator. I barely slept that night because every car sound outside made me think Chloe came back. The next morning, I called legal aid at exactly 9 a.m. when they opened and explained the situation to the intake person. She puts me on hold for a few minutes. Then came back and said attorney Savannah Lozano had a cancellation and can see me at 2 p.m. that same afternoon. I take the rest of the day off work and spent the morning organizing all my evidence. I printed out screenshots of every cruel Facebook post Chloe made, the police reports from both incidents, and I copied the security footage onto my laptop. At 2 p.m. I walked into the legal aid office. And Savannah turned out to be this sharp woman in her 30s who immediately makes me feel like she actually cares. She sat me down and spent over an hour going through everything while taking detailed notes. She reviewed both police reports and asked me specific questions about the knife incident and the stalking. I showed her all the screenshots of Chloe's social media posts where she's playing the victim and blaming me for everything. Then I played her the recording Parker sent me where Chloe talks about him being ugly and boring and just wanting his money. Savannah leaned back in her chair and told me I had an extremely strong case for a temporary restraining order. She explained that the combination of the weapon threat, the stalking behavior, and Chloe's public statements about me showed a clear pattern of harassment. We spent another hour filling out the paperwork, and Savannah helped me write detailed descriptions of both incidents. She asked me to be very specific about what Chloe said when she threatened me with the knife and exactly how long she stalked me in the parking lot. Savannah walked me over to the courthouse to file it. The clerk processed our paperwork and tells us a judge will review it within 24 hours. Savannah said given the weapon involvement, she expected we'll get the emergency order approved. Sure enough, the next morning Savannah called me to say the judge granted an emergency temporary restraining order. Chloe had to stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times, and shall be served with the papers within 48 hours. Savannah explained that this was just temporary, and we have a hearing scheduled in 2 weeks for the permanent order. She warned me that I'll have to testify in front of a judge about everything Chloe did, and Chloe will probably show up to the hearing. Savannah told me to expect Chloe to lie and play the victim. So I needed to bring all my evidence and be ready to stay calm while she tries to make me look bad. I spent the next few days feeling this weird mix of relief and anxiety because I had legal protection now, but I also had to face Chloe in court. 2 days later, I got a text from my dad saying Chloe was just served with restraining order papers, and my parents wanted to talk to me immediately. I didn't respond because I knew exactly what they were going to say. An hour later, my mom left me a voicemail. And she was literally screaming into the phone about how I'm destroying this family. She said Chloe was devastated and humiliated, and how could I do this to my own sister? My dad sent me this long email that night about how disappointed he was in my vindictiveness and how I'm making everything worse instead of trying to help Chloe heal. I read both messages twice and felt this hot anger building in my chest because they still didn't get it. I forwarded both the voicemail and the email to Savannah the next morning. She called me back within an hour and said this was harassment and I should document everything they send me. Savannah helped me draft a response through her office letterhead, telling my parents that all future communication needs to go through my attorney. The letter made it clear that contacting me directly to pressure me about dropping the restraining order was inappropriate and needed to stop immediately. My therapy appointment with Jasmine was that afternoon, and I told her about the restraining order and my parents' reaction. She asked me how I'm feeling about all of it. And I admitted I'm having panic attacks every time I see a car that looks like Chloe's. Jasmine taught me this grounding technique where I name 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. She said it helps pull me back to the present moment when I start spiraling. We spent the rest of the session talking about how my family trained me to prioritize Chloe's feelings over my own safety. Jasmine pointed out that my parents have always expected me to be the bigger person and let Chloe get away with treating me badly. She said their reaction to the restraining order was just more of the same pattern where they protect Chloe no matter what she does. 3 days after getting served with the restraining order, I got a message request on Instagram from an account I don't recognize. The profile had no posts and no followers, and the username was just random letters and numbers. I opened the message and it said, "You're going to regret this." My stomach dropped because I knew immediately it was Chloe. I screenshotted the message right away and sent it to both Officer Contreras and Savannah with a note explaining the fake account. Officer Contreras called me back in less than an hour and said this was a clear violation of the temporary restraining order. He asked me to forward him the screenshot and any other information about the account. Savannah emailed me saying the same thing and that we'll be adding this violation to our evidence for the permanent restraining order hearing. The next day, Officer Contreras went to my parents' house with the new evidence, and this time they actually arrested Chloe for violating the restraining order. She was released the same day on her own recognizance, but now there was an active warrant if she contacts me again. Officer Contreras called me after the arrest to let me know. And he sounded satisfied when he told me Chloe seemed genuinely scared when they put handcuffs on her. 2 days later, Savannah called me and said my parents hired a lawyer for Chloe who just contacted her office. The lawyer tried to negotiate me dropping the restraining order in exchange for Chloe agreeing to stay away from me voluntarily. Savannah tells me she shut that down immediately and made it clear we're proceeding with the hearing as scheduled. She said we're also going to bring up the Instagram violation at the hearing, and it actually strengthens our case because it shows Chloe can't control herself even with legal consequences. 2 weeks before the hearing, I was barely functioning. I woke up every morning around 4 a.m. with my heart racing and couldn't fall back asleep. Every car that drives past my apartment makes me flinch. Every footstep in the hallway makes me grab my phone, ready to call 911. I kept the curtains closed all the time now because I was scared Chloe might be watching from somewhere. Adriana noticed how bad I'm doing and started checking on me every single day. She texted me in the morning to make sure I'm okay and texted me at night before bed. Sometimes she just showed up at my door with coffee or takeout food because she knew I'm not eating properly. After work, she walked me to my car in the parking garage, even though it was out of her way. She stood there and waited until I was locked inside with the engine running before she goes to her own car. I don't know what I'd do without her, because my own family won't even talk to me. At work I was jumpy and distracted, and everyone can tell something is wrong. Bowie pulled me aside one afternoon and told me that HR wants to set up a safety plan for the office. He said they're worried Chloe might show up and cause problems. I met with the security director in a conference room. And it was embarrassing having to explain that my own sister threatened me with a knife. The security director was professional about it, though. He took a photo of Chloe from my phone and added it to the building's Do Not Allow entry list. He programmed the photo into the security system so the front desk staff will recognize her. He gave me his direct number and told me to call 911. First if I see her anywhere near the building, then call him second. He also offered to walk me to my car after work if I ever feel unsafe. The whole thing makes me feel like I'm in a movie, except this is actually my real life. The day before the hearing, Savannah called me and asked me to come to her office. I took a half day off work and met her at the legal aid building. We sat in a small conference room, and she went over exactly what's going to happen in court. She told me the judge will ask me to testify about everything that happened. I'll need to describe the years of mockery, the wedding disaster, and especially the knife incident. She warned me that Chloe's lawyer is going to try to make me look bad. He'll probably claim I'm overreacting or that I did something to provoke her. He might say I'm jealous of Chloe or that I'm lying about how serious the threat was. Savannah told me the most important thing is to stay calm and just stick to the facts. Don't get emotional or defensive. Just tell the truth about what happened and let the evidence speak for itself. She showed me all the evidence we're bringing, including the police report. The photos of the knife, Adriana's written statement, the security footage of Chloe stalking me in the parking lot, and screenshots of the Instagram message. Looking at everything laid out like that made it feel more real. This is actually happening. I'm actually taking my own sister to court. That night, I can't sleep at all. I lay in bed going over everything in my head. What if the judge doesn't believe me? What if my parents convince him I'm exaggerating? What if Chloe's lawyer makes me look crazy? I finally gave up trying to sleep around 6 a.m. and just sat on my couch staring at my phone. Jasmine texted me at 6:30 asking how I'm doing. I told her I'm freaking out, and she offered to do an emergency phone session. At 7 a.m. she called me, and we spent 40 minutes going through her grounding techniques. She had me name 5 things I can see. For things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, and 1 thing I can taste. It helped pull me back to the present moment instead of spiraling about all the what-ifs. She reminded me that I have evidence and witnesses, and that the truth is on my side. She told me to focus on just getting through today and not worry about anything beyond that. At the courthouse, I arrived early with Savannah. We sat on a bench in the hallway outside the courtroom. My hands were shaking, so I sat on them to keep them still. Then Chloe showed up with our parents and her lawyer. She was wearing this conservative dress that made her look innocent and stable, like she's going to church or a job interview. Her hair was neat, and she had minimal makeup on. She looked nothing like the unhinged person who showed up at my apartment with a knife. Our parents were dressed up, too, standing on either side of her like bodyguards. My mom kept her arm around Chloe's shoulders. They sat on a bench on the opposite side of the hallway. I refused to look at any of them. I kept my eyes on the floor or on Savannah's legal pad. I can feel them staring at me, though. I can hear my mom whispering to Chloe. The hearing started, and we all filed into the courtroom. The judge was an older man with gray hair who looked tired. I had to testify first. I sat in the witness box with my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. Savannah asked me questions, and I answered them as clearly as I can. I described how Chloe mocked me for years about being cheated on. I told the judge about the wedding disaster and how Parker exposed her at the altar. I explained how she showed up at my apartment looking completely unhinged and blamed me for ruining her reputation. Then I described the knife, how she pulled it out of her purse. How she pointed it at me with shaking hands. And how she said the only way to fix things was if people remembered me as the murdered sister instead of the cheated-on sister. The whole time I'm talking, Chloe was sitting at the other table crying and shaking her head like I'm making it all up. Her lawyer objected a few times, saying I'm being dramatic. He asked me questions trying to make it seem like I provoked her or exaggerated the threat. He suggested I'm jealous of Chloe and using the legal system to get revenge for the wedding humiliation. It's so ridiculous I almost laughed, except nothing about this is actually funny. Savannah presented all our evidence next. She handed the judge the police report, and he read through it carefully. She showed him the photos of the knife that Officer Contreras took. She submitted Adriana's written witness statement describing what she heard and saw. She played the security footage from my apartment building showing Chloe sitting in her car watching the entrance for over an hour. She showed him screenshots of the Instagram message from the fake account. The judge looked more and more angry as he reviewed everything. His expression got darker with each piece of evidence. Then it's Chloe's turn to testify. She gets up on the witness stand and immediately starts crying. She said she never meant to hurt anyone and that she was just having a mental breakdown after her wedding fell apart. She claims she doesn't even remember pulling out the knife because she was so upset. Her lawyer argues that she needs therapy and support, not a restraining order. He says punishing her will just make her mental health worse. My parents both testify next. My mom says I'm blowing things out of proportion because I've always been jealous of Chloe. My dad says it was just a sister fight that got out of hand and that I'm overreacting by involving the legal system. They both insist Chloe would never actually hurt me. The judge listened to everything, and then he made his decision. He granted a full 1-year restraining order. He told Chloe that if she violates it even once, she will be arrested immediately with no warnings. He ordered her to complete anger management counseling and attend regular therapy sessions. He said the criminal case for the assault with a deadly weapon will proceed separately through the prosecutor's office. Chloe started sobbing, and my mom gasps. Walking out of the courthouse afterward, I felt this weird mix of relief and sadness. Relief because I got the protection I need. Sadness because I just had to get a restraining order against my own sister. My parents wouldn't even look at me as we leave through different exits. I saw my mom crying while hugging Chloe in the parking lot. My dad had his arm around both of them. They're surrounding her with comfort and support while I walked to my car alone with just Savannah. That image tells me everything I need to know about whose side they're on and whose side they'll always be on. A week after the hearing, the prosecutor's office called me to discuss criminal charges for the knife incident. The woman on the phone explained that they could charge Chloe with assault with a deadly weapon. But they were willing to offer a plea deal if she admitted what she did and accepted probation with required counseling. I told her I needed to talk to Savannah before making any decisions. And she gave me until the end of the week to respond. Savannah met with me the next day at her office and laid out all my options on her desk. She explained that a plea deal meant I wouldn't have to testify in a criminal trial, where Chloe's lawyer would try to make me look bad, and my parents would probably testify against me. The plea deal would also put the assault on Chloe's permanent record, which would protect me if she ever tried anything else because judges would see she had a history of violence. I was so tired of court and legal stuff, and the idea of another trial made me want to throw up. I told Savannah I wanted to accept the plea deal because I just needed this whole thing to be over. She called the prosecutor right there from her office and confirmed I was agreeing to the terms. 2 weeks later, Chloe took the plea deal in front of a judge. I didn't have to be there, but Savannah went and called me afterward to tell me what happened. Chloe got 2 years of probation, 100 hours of community service, required anger management classes, and the restraining order stayed in place for the full year. If she broke any part of her probation, she would go straight to jail with no second chances. Savannah said Chloe cried through the whole thing, and my mom had to help her walk out of the courtroom. For the first time since the knife incident, I felt like there were actual real consequences happening, instead of everyone just making excuses for her. 3 days after Chloe's sentencing, I got an email from my dad with the subject line "Final Communication." I almost deleted it without reading, but something made me open it. The email said that I was dead to them as a daughter for ruining Chloe's life over a misunderstanding. My mom had added a paragraph at the bottom, saying I was no longer welcome at any family events, including holidays, and that they would tell the extended family I had cut them off, not the other way around. Reading those words hurt worse than I expected, even though I knew they were choosing Chloe over me. I sat on my couch staring at the email for probably 20 minutes, just feeling this heavy sadness in my chest. Then I called Jasmine for an emergency phone session, and she talked me through it. She reminded me that my parents were never going to choose my safety over protecting Chloe, and that their decision to disown me said everything about them and nothing about me. After we hung up, I went through my phone and blocked both my parents on everything. I blocked their numbers, their emails, their social media, and even blocked my mom's friends who might try to contact me for her. When I finished, I sat there for a minute and realized I could actually breathe easier without waiting for the next awful message from them. Adriana knocked on my door that evening and asked if I wanted to get dinner to celebrate the restraining order being finalized. We went to this Italian place near my apartment, and she told me how proud she was that I stood up for myself when my whole family was against me. She said watching me go through the legal process had been inspiring, and that she hoped if she ever needed to set boundaries with her own family, she would be as brave as me. It felt good to have someone actually see what I'd been through instead of making excuses for Chloe. Work became the one stable place in my life where people actually cared about how I was doing. My manager pulled me into her office about a month after the restraining order and told me she was giving me a small raise. She said she was really impressed with how I'd handled everything while still showing up and doing my job well. Bowie started checking in on me regularly to make sure I was okay, and even brought me coffee on days when I looked extra tired. The security team kept Chloe's photo up at the front desk and told me multiple times to call them immediately if I saw her anywhere near the building. 3 months after the restraining order, I was doing so much better in my weekly therapy sessions with Jasmine. We were working on understanding why I had accepted Chloe's mean treatment for so many years and how I could build healthier relationships going forward. Jasmine helped me see that I'd been trained since childhood to put Chloe's feelings above my own safety, and that breaking that pattern was going to take time and practice. She also helped me process the grief of losing my parents, even though they were the ones who chose to cut me off. Around that same time, Jasmine recommended I try a support group for people dealing with toxic family members. I was nervous about going, but I showed up to the first meeting at a community center near my apartment. Hearing other people's stories was incredible because I realized I wasn't alone or crazy. One woman talked about how her sister had threatened her with a weapon, and their parents took the sister's side exactly like mine did. Another person shared about getting a restraining order against a family member and dealing with the guilt even though they knew it was necessary. Everyone in that room understood what it felt like to be blamed for protecting yourself from someone who was supposed to love you. Parker reached out one more time about 4 months after the restraining order. He sent me a message saying that Chloe had been trying to contact him through mutual friends, asking about me and wanting to know where I live now. He wanted to warn me in case she was planning to do something. I thanked him for letting me know and immediately forwarded his message to Officer Contreras, who said he would make a note in the file. But there wasn't much they could do unless she actually violated the restraining order. I spent the next few weeks extra careful about checking my surroundings and making sure my doors were secured. 6 months after the knife incident, I was finally sleeping through most nights without waking up in a panic. I had upgraded all my apartment locks to heavy-duty deadbolts and installed a security camera that sent alerts to my phone if anyone approached my door. My life looked completely different now without my toxic family in it. I had Adriana, my coworkers, my therapy sessions, and the support group. I had a job where people respected me and a home where I felt safe. Chloe was still out there somewhere finishing her probation and probably still blaming me for everything, but she couldn't get to me anymore. The restraining order had 6 more months left. And I was already planning to renew it because I didn't trust that she had actually changed. A few weeks later, I heard through people we both know that Chloe had finished her anger management classes. Someone who knew her from the program mentioned she was still telling everyone that I overreacted and made everything worse for her on purpose. She wasn't taking any real responsibility for pulling a knife on me or stalking me at work. The restraining order had 6 months left before it expired. And I was already planning to file for a renewal because nothing I heard suggested she had actually changed. I talked to Savannah about it. And she said we could start the paperwork 3 months before the expiration date to make sure there was no gap in protection. Around that same time, my relationship with Adriana and her circle had grown into something I never expected. She invited me to dinner with some of her friends one Friday night. And I was nervous about meeting new people after everything that happened. But her friends were amazing and normal. And when I mentioned my situation with my sister, one of them said her brother had threatened her too, and she understood how hard it was. For the first time in my life, I had people around me who didn't think it was normal to mock someone for being cheated on or threaten them with knives. They treated me like my safety mattered and my feelings were valid. I started hanging out with them regularly, and it felt incredible to have a friend group that wasn't connected to my toxic family. Then one Saturday morning, I was sitting in my apartment drinking coffee and looking at my calendar, planning my weekend. Chloe had sent me a message through a burner email the day before, with some long explanation about how I ruined her life and owed her an apology. I forwarded it to Officer Contreras without even reading the whole thing and blocked the email address. Then I went right back to planning which hiking trail to check out with Adriana's friends and what groceries I needed to buy. I realized while sitting there that I felt genuinely safe and happy. My apartment was my space where no one could hurt me. My friends were people who actually cared about me. My job was stable and my coworkers looked out for me. Chloe was still out there somewhere, probably still blaming me for everything. But she couldn't get to me anymore, and I didn't spend my days worrying about what she might do next. That's a powerful lesson tucked inside the journey. Hopefully, you walk away from this story with something useful, because that's exactly what makes it worth sharing.